So you get the news, maybe from a doctor, maybe from a test result you Googled, and you see those three words, diminished ovarian reserve. It just sounds final, doesn't it? It's a diagnosis that can feel incredibly stressful and honestly pretty lonely. Today, we're going to cut through all that noise and really figure out what this means for you. And yeah, that's really the heart of it, isn't it? The sheer weight of that diagnosis. It's not just some medical term on a piece of paper. It's a moment that's just packed with fear, with anxiety, and with 1,000 questions about what on earth happens next. So, here's the big question we're tackling today. Is a DOR diagnosis the end of the story, or is it just the beginning of a new chapter, one where you actually have a lot more power than you might think? Let's dive in and find out. Okay, first things first, we've got to understand the science behind this. And I want you to think of this not as some kind of judgment on your body, but more like you're learning to read the clues it's sending you. Okay, so let's get one thing straight right off the bat, because it's so important. Diminished ovarian reserve is about the quantity of eggs you have, how many there are. It does not automatically say anything about the quality of those eggs. That distinction is probably the single most important thing to get your head around. To make this super simple, let's use this fantastic metaphor from Dr. Crawford. Picture this. Inside your ovaries, there's a vault. And when you're born, all the eggs you will ever have are already locked away inside this vault. So here's how it works. Every single month, a new group of eggs gets released from that vault. Now, if your vault is pretty full, a bigger group comes out. If the vault is a little less full, a smaller group comes out. The key thing is, doctors can only count the eggs that are outside the vault each month, and that count gives them an educated guess about how many are still left inside. Okay, so how do we actually measure what's coming out of that vault? Well, there are three main tests. First, the Antral Follicle Count, or AFC. That's an ultrasound where they literally just count the follicles they can see that month. Then there's AMH, which is a blood test. It measures a hormone that those same follicles make, so more follicles usually means a higher AMH level. And finally, there's FSH. That's a hormone from your brain. If it's high, it can mean your brain is kind of yelling at your ovaries to work harder, which might suggest the reserve is lower. All three of these together paint a picture of your ovarian reserve. All right, so we've got the science down, but, numbers on a lab report are one thing. What does this actually mean for a real person? This is where data meets determination. It's a story that really shows why you have to be your own biggest advocate. So, what do you do? What happens when you get that kind of news, when a doctor looks at your numbers and tells you what is and what isn't possible for you? Do you just accept it, or do you push back? Let me tell you about a patient Dr. Crawford saw. She was just 32 years old, and she was a physician herself, so she knew her way around medicine. She'd been on birth control for years, and when she stopped it to try and start a family, her period just never came back. So she gets tested, and the news, it was just brutal. Her AMH was extremely low for a 32-year-old. She was told point blank that she was an ovarian failure, and that the only way she would ever have a child was by using donor eggs. End of story. A closed door. And this is where everything changes. She went for a second opinion, and this is what she said. She said she could accept any outcome, whatever it was, but she wasn't willing to be forced to accept it without even giving her own body a chance. That right there is the voice of true self-advocacy. So what happened when she tried? What was the result of that fight? After 3 IVF cycles, she had her child from her own eggs. And not only that, she has more embryos frozen, waiting for a second child. This is real, living proof that a diagnosis is a starting point for a conversation, not the end of one. Wow. That story is just so powerful, right? And it leads us perfectly into our next section. Because inspired by her determination, let's talk about the things that are actually within your control. Because look, it's so easy to feel completely helpless when you're hearing about genetics and egg counts and things you can't change. But the science actually shows us there's a lot you can do to influence the environment that your eggs are living in. So what we're aiming for here is to lower inflammation, to basically create the best possible home for your eggs. And it really comes down to the basics. A diet packed with fruits, veggies, and fiber, moving your body, building that muscle, getting good quality sleep so your body can repair itself. And of course, avoiding things we know are toxic, like cigarette smoke. And this is about more than just being healthy. We're talking about something called metabolic competency. Just think of it like this. For an egg to become a healthy embryo, it needs a huge amount of energy. That energy comes from these tiny little powerhouses in your cells called mitochondria. A healthy, anti-inflammatory lifestyle is the best way to fuel those mitochondria, giving every single egg you have its absolute best shot. Okay, we've gone through the science, we've heard this incredible, inspiring story, and we've looked at what you can actually control. Now, let's put it all together. Let's build a real plan for how to move forward. So here it is, a super practical 4-step action plan. Step 1, know your data. Really understand what your results mean in the context of your age. Step 2, ask why. Work with your doctor to see if there are any underlying causes. Step 3, get the labs. Rule out any other hormonal or autoimmune issues. And finally, step 4, and this is the big one, plan your future. And look, what that plan actually looks like, it's going to be different for everyone. You might decide to do nothing, and you know what? That is a totally valid choice. You might decide to speed up your timeline for trying to build a family. Or you might choose to preserve your options for later by freezing eggs or embryos. There is no single right answer here. There's only the answer that is right for you. And that, right there, is the whole point of all of this. It's about empowerment. It's about taking this information and using it to put yourself back in the driver's seat so that you are the one making the choices instead of just letting time make those choices for you. So that's where we'll leave it. Remember, this diagnosis is not a verdict. It's information. It's a signal from your body asking you to listen. And now, with this knowledge, you are ready to advocate for yourself, to explore your options, and to take control of your own story. The only question left is, what decision will you make for your future?